You know, when it comes to you guys, if you want a review, you want it. Come rain or sunshine, you want that review. Because I wasn't even planning on doing this review. I gave you a walk around video with features and everything, and then I got requests saying, but when are you actually reviewing the car? And in my head I was like, nah, but it's just a launch, you know. I wasn't planning on doing a review, but hey, I saw that, you know what, I'm gonna die here, so let me just do something about it. Luckily, I have this clip where we're driving on the launch drive, and then I can just be able to tell you a little bit about BAIC and my experience on the launch while we're driving on this journey, right? So here, I'm with Sibu in the car from 4-Wheel Chasers. You must check out his website. You must also check out his channel. He just started a channel. He even reviewed this car and gave his experience based on the launch as well. So on this launch, actually, we were in a convoy traveling from 4 ways all the way to Hartley's side and back testing these cars. We drove like the 3 variants, which is the lower spec, and then we drove the mid spec and then the top spec. This one that we are in right now is the top spec. Using the BAIC language, this will be the premium variant is the top spec, and then in the mid spec you'll find the elite, and then the lower spec is called dynamic. But for those who don't know me, I'm Sibua. Welcome to this channel, and I appreciate that you're here with me today. So before we tap into feelings and opinions, what I think, what I feel, let's just talk a little bit about BAIC, right? Because I think people think BAIC is a new brand, but BAIC is not necessarily a new brand. It's been around for some time, I think since 2015, but I believe some of you started noticing them when they brought us the off-road vehicle, the B40, in the prior year. And I'm thinking that's when people started saying, oh, there's a new brand and so on. But they've been around for some time. If I remember very well, they've launched the BAIC D20, which was a hatch and a sedan before, and then they went on to launch the BAIC X55, which was an SUV. Those vehicles, they came through BAIC South Africa, which is an arm of BAIC coming from China in South Africa. So they actually have offices here. They actually have offices and a manufacturing plant there in Gqeberha, where they're assembling some of these vehicles. I think the X25 is the one that they're actually assembling at that particular plant. So what they did when they came here is that they formed a JV with the IDC, our IDC. If you're not aware of what a JV is, it's a joint venture. Basically, it means we are coming together to create something for a specific purpose, which is that particular company. It's BAIC South Africa in this case, and it's created for the purposes of obviously assembling vehicles and then feeding them to the South African market. And I think they're also targeting Africa in this case. What I'm telling you right now is stories that happened, I think, around 2015. And the plant itself was, the construction, I think, started around 2016. And then it led to everything that happened until today. So you can imagine BAIC has been around. Only the Beijing brand is the one that is just starting now. Okay, with that little bit of history out of the way, now we need to talk about this journey, right? Because we were moving. I'm sorry, because the aircon was on for some time in this vehicle, and I can imagine it was just making noise. So here's the thing. We've already done a walk around of this vehicle. We've seen its exterior. We've seen it on front, rear, side. We've went into the boot. We looked at the interior and so on. And here I just want to talk about feelings and my opinion in terms of this launch drive, what I experienced with this vehicle, because that matters a lot in terms of when you're just interacting with the vehicle for the first time. And that's something that for me, when I got in here, if I had never been in the Chinese vehicles recently, I was going to be in a total shock, because there's so much quality in here. There's just so much quality. From the moment you touch the door handle, these pop-up handles, as much as they look nice when they're hiding away and popping up and so on, I was worried that are they going to last? Because then if you touch them and feel like they're just wobbling a bit, then it might be a problem. But wow, they actually well screwed together. They feel like quality so far. And when you close it, you get inside, the feeling that you're going to get, the experience as well. If I was to put a blindfold on you and cover the badge here as well, bring you inside, and then just let you see what you're seeing in here and ask you where you are, the way you're going to be feeling from the seats to your elbows touching like the armrest and your hands touching the steering wheel and around the car, there's a high chance that you're going to mention a very expensive vehicle. If you have seen a Tesla before from design point of view, especially for this steering wheel with these buttons on the side, I think there was some inspiration coming from Tesla there on the steering wheel, as well as the plainness of the vehicle, because there's not a lot of buttons in here that you're going to be pressing. Actually, if I look around, it's just the steering wheel and this handbrake, electronic handbrake button that you're going to be using here. Otherwise, yeah, there's not a lot that you're going to be touching. Of course, on the side is the windows controls and other stuff as well, then the mirrors and so on. That's obviously there's buttons there, but otherwise it's just as plain as a vehicle can be. And simplicity works, guys. Simplicity works for me in terms of giving you the premium feeling. Wow, this car doesn't fail. I don't want to lie, it doesn't fail at all. It gives you that feeling that, you know what, this is a very premium vehicle. For someone who doesn't know how Chinese are costing their vehicles currently, they might think this is a very expensive vehicle, by the way. When you get to the road now, right, you know, I'm about to feel like I'm advertising this car, and you know what, it's my honest opinion about it. I'm not advertising it, because the way it feels, especially at this price point, I think this top spec is around 455. There's a lot of things that I consider. I've driven quite a number of cars, and there are cars that I've driven that are costing more and did not give me the same kind of feeling or feedback that I got from them. The way I felt, it's not giving me the same price point that they are. And I'm considering the suspension of this vehicle, the way it feels when you are hitting the hard ones on the road. You know, it's soaking up the bumps so well that, yeah, I'm like, okay, now what really happened here? Because if I'm to match it to the price, I'm starting to be very scared for some brands out there, especially with what they're giving us and what we are paying for. I'm starting to be very scared. You know, that's the thing. I've been telling people that I'm interested in what the Chinese are doing, especially with the notion that we had with them. Of course, they've been doing copies of certain things. They've been trying to see what other people are doing, but I think in that process they were trying to develop themselves in a way that we did not see it coming, and now we're just shocked and asking ourselves, how are they doing this? Because in this vehicle you really feel like you're in a premium vehicle. They didn't just focus on the things that you have to just touch. They really try to look at how you're going to experience this vehicle as you're driving it, because I can't complain about the steering wheel, the way it feels as well, the way it turns the vehicle. I can't complain about that. Is one thing that I can tell from the moment I start a vehicle whether the vehicle is going to give me problems with the steering wheel and the way it behaves. Once you turn it, you can tell that these wheels are responding, and it's well calibrated with the wheel so that it can be able to just, you know, point where you need it to go. Of course, it's not necessarily a sport vehicle that's going to be as dynamic, because this car is made for, I think, comfort more than that. Another area that I need to tick before I can start clapping hands for a vehicle is actually insulation, and they got that. They got that, especially for the price point. I normally talk about vehicles looking at how much I paid, because I have to always consider that. Of course, value for money is important. And thinking about the insulation, we were talking about it even on this drive with that people. You know what, this vehicle is not making a lot of noise, either from the engine, the road, or the wind noise as well. There's just a little bit of wind noise coming from the side, of course, when you are pushing it just at around 120 and so on. It's not annoying whatsoever, because it's the mirrors, the way they're designed to avoid the blind spot, putting them a little bit to the side of the car, of the pillar here. It's something that you will always experience a little bit of wind noise, but it's not annoying whatsoever. I mean, this vehicle is just giving me reasons to advertise it, and I'm not intending on doing that. Let's talk about the marriage of this engine and this transmission. You know, when you've driven a lot of DCTs, especially the 7-speed ones, you'd know that they are actually quite good transmissions, and I'm not finding this one to be any different. It's not a transmission that gets confused easily. It gets the job done. It knows when to shift, and it's not even making this engine to work so hard, especially when you're on the like a highway like this, when it's just cruising. It's not making a lot of like droning sounds and changing downs and so on, regardless of the changing slopes and so on. It manages to keep where it needs to keep the gear on. It manages to do that, and when you put the foot down, it manages to change down. As much as there will be that little bit of a lag, because this is a turbo engine, it's going to always have that. I'm not finding it to be forcing the engine to work hard and start making that droning noise, and it's making for a pleasant drive in that case. Getting to the engine, I'm not saying this is true. Don't even quote me. I heard rumors that this engine might be the same engine that you find in the C-Class. I know the W205 C-Class has a 1.5 engine. I don't even know if that is the case, and I believe it is not. I believe it might be sharing some components with it, because this is what BAIC said. They said this vehicle was developed with inspiration from the tech. What did they say now? You know this English. They said this vehicle's technology was inspired by Daimler, which is Mercedes in this case, of course, because in China, they have a JV with Mercedes to actually produce the C-Class, the E-Class. I think they also have the EQC, other vehicles as well. They do have it, their plant in China, where they are Beijing-Benz. It's not just Mercedes-Benz in China, it's Beijing-Benz. That's how Mercedes-Benz managed to get into China. Through that JV, they're actually producing cars for China. And this vehicle, I'm not sure if it's coming from the same plant that they actually produce the C-Classes and so on, but they said it's inspired by the technology coming from there. Coming to the engine now, with its rumors that we can't confirm nor deny. It's pushing out 130 kilowatts and 305 Newton meters of torque. Those numbers are not small by any means. Those are big numbers. Does it feel like it when you are pushing it? I'd say from the standstill, it struggles a bit, because it goes to fetch the power from down low, and you can feel the turbo lag coming in. But once it gets on the move, that's where you start thinking, you know what, I think this is actually 130 kilowatts, because from standstill, I can say there are cars that are lower powered that I think can actually beat this car with 0 to 100. But from 60 to 100, I'm not sure, because it responds quite well. It responds quite quickly. It's punchy, actually. This vehicle is punchy. I don't want to lie to you. It does start feeling like actually the torque and power figure is actually in there. In the beginning, when you're just putting it from standstill, you're putting your foot down from standstill, it feels like, nah, man, it's pulling back a bit. It's a little shy in that area, but on the road, I can feel that it's moving. If I was to do a relation, I'd say if I'm to put it next to a Julian, it will eat a Julian alive. If I was to put it next to a Tiggo 4 or 7 Pro, well, yeah, no, it will still eat them the way it feels. But there's a funny engine that is coming from VW with 110 kilowatts and 250 Newton meters of torque. There's 1.5s and 1.4s. And hey, those things will shock you, man. I don't know what's in those engines, but I'm not sure. The way it feels, because those ones are way smoother when you're pulling them hard. I'm thinking those ones can actually give this one a run for their money. But actually, this vehicle is quite punchy. I don't want to lie. It's quite punchy, and it doesn't feel uncomfortable when you are trying to push it as hard. As much as it's making that sound that, you know what, it's not a sound that you're going to feel like I need to let go of the throttle because I feel like I'm hitting it. It still gives you that confidence that, you know what, I'm not falling apart. I can still go. I can still go. I can still go. And that's something that actually I enjoy about a car that does that, because I'm not getting scared that maybe I'm blowing something up. But did I get the same feelings from all the three variants? No. The lower spec one, I would put it differently to the mid spec and the top spec ones, because the lower spec one really, it felt a little bit, I don't know if it was that particular unit, but there was some rattling. The wind noise was quite a lot, and it just didn't feel as premium. I don't know what was different in how it felt, because the way it looks, it doesn't look different in many ways. Of course, it doesn't have some features and so on, but the installation in that didn't feel like with the mid spec and the top spec. And that's the thing that contributed a lot to how it felt. Like, it's not necessarily a vehicle that I can say, you know, this is so premium that I would buy it at 700,000. No, it didn't make me feel like that. And one of the biggest issues I have with this vehicle, all three variants in this case, is that this screen is giving you controls for almost everything. If you want to change the driving modes, I think you can also set it so that the star button here can help you to change driving modes and so on. But so far, if you have to work with this screen, the controls here are not as big, so you need to be like, you need to be used to this vehicle. With this first drive kind of experience, it was not nice, because everything in the screen means you're looking more on the screen, trying to find out where is this, where is that, playing with the screen and so on. It's really not nice to work on this screen. I understand some cars have bigger screens that you can actually just see where to press and so on, but this one, touching it throughout, it was not a great experience. On this journey, obviously we drove different cars and we experienced them in a different way in this case. And our first car, I think we're averaging around 8.8 liters to 100. Compared to the claimed 7.2 for a new car, it's not that bad. But when we were driving the others, I saw that it was averaging around 10 liters to 100. And I can only wonder how those guys were pushing it. And yeah, because this is a launch drive, those figures are never going to be reliable. We need it for a longer period to actually give you the actual fuel consumption. But so far, I think based on the performance, it's actually quite okay. As I said, this is a drivability experience. I'm not going to just focus on everything that is out there like I do with all the detailed review and so on. We're still going to get this car on test, and we're going to talk more about it. So far, it's a vehicle that comes at a very reasonable price, starting from $394 for the lower spec all the way to $455 for the top spec. But you still have to add service plan for around 16,000 something, I think around 17,000. And that thing is not necessarily something new. If you know about the right to repair, you can go and read about it. You will know that vehicles are actually supposed to be stripped out of the service plans and all those things, so that you can have a choice as to where you're going to service your car without actually losing your warranty whatsoever. That's something that it's been in the works for quite some time here in South Africa in the automotive industry. You need to be aware of that as well. You're fine.
Yeah.
When it comes to the vehicle overall, in terms of what it offers, the specs that it has, the features that it has, how it looks, how it drives as well, I think there's a reason why a lot of competition need to be scared, hey? Because every Chinese product that comes in, lately especially, it's just blowing us away, and this is no different. There is a lot of things that other brands need to go and think about, because looking at the pricing of these vehicles and what they're offering in terms of value, hey, there's a lot to be worried about. Guys, we're still gonna do more reviews on this vehicle when we got it on testing it and giving you more information on it. For now, thank you so much for being here with me. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm out.